So I thought we'd run through the state of the electrical industry on the Apprentice 1-to-1 channel. And really that's for some of you who are newer to this game than I am. Often we just assume you know this stuff when, you've not been on planet Earth quite as long as I have, and some of the things that people older than me in the industry are aware of, I was totally clueless about until they explained them. So I thought I'd pop this out, as I do have a younger audience following along on here than other parts of social media. Just to try and do that. So one of the big issues of industry right now is training, and as a lot of you will know, job opportunities as apprentices. That's kind of why Apprentice 1-to-1 even exists, really. The quality of training that's out there for those of you who are doing vocational training and trying to qualify competent, capable electricians. In 2024, it's not easy, and it's never been easy, is the real truth. I think the problems that we're facing now kind of originated in the 80s, when we first started seeing the messing around of training to formalise it, if you like. It was always just a case of kind of go to work with somebody and go through an indentured apprenticeship or on-the-job training, and there'd be some additional qualifications that started to emerge alongside that around that time. And we had the YTS scheme, which is something that came through in my generation, where you'd be paid, so it's a youth training scheme, about £35–45 a week. And you do your vocational training and end up with a qualification, usually in a trade or some sort of manual, blue collar, I guess, want of a better word, job prospect, where you could work up from off the tools through that route and further training into more advanced careers than just the manual side of what we all do. And then we had this change, huge change in the mid-2000s, where the government wanted to tackle like DIY and unregistered electrical installations, and they came up with Part P. Part P as concept was a really good idea. It was kind of there to try and, the intention, I honestly believe this, the intention of it was to increase the quality of work in the electrical sector, make people more accountable for it, and have building control overseeing it to a degree. However, it panned out in a way that achieved the opposite. The sector was aware that lots of people were doing electrical work who were unregistered and not within any kind of trade association, not even part of the electrical industry, in truth. And to include them in this mechanism, the domestic installer scheme was brought forward. That was where somebody didn't have to do their apprenticeship to work on electrical systems. They could do short form training and then be deemed competent in certain areas to begin with. So if you were a kitchen fitter, for example, or a plumber, and you wanted to certify bits of electrical work around installing kitchens or putting boilers in, there was a route there for you to be able to notify it and do that. And little courses you could go on, basically with the intention of changing socket fronts, I think, and fused connection units and so, and just having some accountability of that work. As it panned out, the training sector ran away with that and started to create these very, very short routes into the electrical industry as full-blown domestic installers, rewiring houses, as far as consumers were concerned, on an equal footing with any electrician. And these courses started off at maybe, I think there was 6 weeks wonders to begin with, and then it ended up all the way down to 5-day wonder sparks, where you could enter this industry as an electrician after 5 days. Now, that's not revolutionary or revolutionary information. That's something that's been known for decades now, and industry's moved away from that. They've accepted that that was a bad move. The people responsible at that time, long since gone, and newer people out there have come forward with the EAS specification. We've had a change in how the apprenticeships are run. The standards were adjusted. It's now a 48-month course again. The trade associations, as where CPSs as are no longer accepting people into their membership without the MVQ level 3, AM2, and all of that. So there has been a move to change. However, the volume of people who were already through the door are not excluded. There's a thing called grandfather rights, and that basically gives anyone who's been through a prior training mechanism that was valid at the time they took it, the ability to remain as is, because it's considered unfair. And rightly so, I understand that. People who went through those routes, I do not blame at all. They were playing the game at the time, and lots of them were misled by trainers and industry to go down those routes. It's not their fault at all, and no disparagement towards those people from myself. It's just trying to solve the problem, if you like. That's where my focus is in and around all of this. And you'll see the voices on social media who pipe up saying how Part P ruined the industry, the CPSs are to blame, there's this wrong, there's that wrong. They're pointing out all the problems. That's not difficult. It's not some kind of campaign for improvement. It's pointing out the obvious, and it affects nothing. It changes nothing other than them venting. There's no productive outcome from that whatsoever. And I've done those things. In the mid-2000s, I left the trade association I was with around the domestic installer things and kicked up a stink, both publicly and to government at the time, and nothing happened. Nothing changed, and it was a total waste of my energy. And that's no disrespect to those people who have made those kind of complaints. I think a lot of it is born from frustration, maybe one or two where it's all been about getting in magazines, on the radio, and raising your profile by beating others down to do that. But in large part, with the majority of people, it's frustration from going through it. And I felt that frustration and behaved in the same way myself once upon a time. So I get it. But we also have to bear responsibility as all the people of industry for what's happened, to a lesser degree than those who to make the decisions and drive things where they went. But we're all complicit in that by paying our membership fees, quietly getting on with things, out hustling, doing the do. We didn't stop it, and it's taken a long time to get the acceptance that was a bad thing for the electrical industry, and have to action a shift away from that. And it takes an equal amount of time to see the benefits. So you'll still see those same complaints today that what's changing, things are getting worse, and all the rest of it. And the positive benefits of those changes will maybe take a decade to truly feel if the next generation of people come through, and some of those who entered industry with perhaps a weaker framework of training, retire and leave. That's the nature of the beast. We do still have this skills crisis out in the electrical industry. These are the difficulties, and there are some huge positives right now. So I don't want you following along with Apprentice 1-to-1, just taking in the noise on social media of all the complaints, because that's often all you will really see. The successes are kind of hidden in the background, with people just getting on with stuff and taking their opportunities and thriving. There's a few examples on social media, but it tends to just be people kicking off and complaining, arguing with each other, sharing a little bit of their work. That's the stories and topics that flare up, because that's what interests us as humans. We like a bit of aggravation, don't we? So I'm going to delve into some of the positivity around industry after this, because I don't think the stage should be given to those one or two negative trade trolls who thrive on the attention when they do call out the ills of industry that ultimately they were part of, and have no acceptance that they could also form part of the solution with a bit of effort and energy. And we'll cover what those things are as well in this little chat. So one of the things I decided to do to have a positive impact, having realised through my frustrations nothing was happening, was to try and help trainees and apprentices. And this predates Apprentice 1-to-1 by several years. Been doing that in the background for a long, long time, be that through support with equipment, finance, or my time. It's gone on for a while. And also employing my own apprentices, bringing people through in my business as qualified electricians to try and impact what I see as a higher standard. People train my way, if you like, out working in industry, and then they'll maybe filter that down with their own trainees in the future as well. And that's how it works. So you'll see a lot of these people who complain can never directly employ an apprentice. They may have been in employed roles where apprentices were around them, but that's not their decision. They've not done the do. The part of the problem, especially some of the smaller contractors who make excuses around the difficulties employing apprentices. The struggles are there, but it can be done. And it's up to us to make that effort, like our former mentors in industry did. It wasn't easy for them either. It's not just all of a sudden become difficult. It's been hard always. Financial, time, investment in people. If they hadn't have done it, we wouldn't have had the opportunities that we did. So we've got to pay that forward. So yeah, I certainly noticed several of the worst proponents for kicking off and complaining have never, ever brought through an apprentice, and certainly not in the last 10 years. They just work for themselves, expecting a living to be laid on by industry with no effort and investment on their part. Take. And that may seem harsh, because the financial difficulties of employing people are there. It's really hard. Believe me, I know, I've had the bills. It's not straightforward, but yeah, when you do go down that road, usually when you find the right people, you'll find your business grows and thrives because of it. I've certainly had that, and I know of many others exactly the same. But I think that's enough on the problems. Basically, in summary, it's Part P, training providers ripping industry off, lining their own pockets, and they're still out there in their plentiful volume, these training companies now ripping solar and EV with their courses, where you can go through a recruitment company and pay $5,000 as an employer or a trainee yourself to get into the industry. They and Part P caused all of this, and the CPSs often take the rap. I should counter that by saying the CPSs also had their own training centres contributing to that, so they're not without blame at all. But just as a bit of context, they're not the sole avenue of blame. But yeah, positivity around industry. Everyone looks at renewables and thinks it's just that area that's like booming. And it is, without question. We have the challenges of the energy retailers kind of battling away to devalue things to, get people on energy contracts with solar panels that they can milk for revenue. So there's that aspect. But if you rule that aside, and they do not have the ability en masse to deliver what's needed, it's not to the quality that's needed without them falling apart. So they're not a long-term threat in that area. You've got renewables, you've got EV. These things are going to be plentiful over the next decade and more. Government policy is going to dictate that, the whole net zero drive and agenda. But we've also got aging electrical infrastructure, both at a DNO level, where there's massive investment there. So there's huge opportunity for people to go into employed roles on the DNO and the grid. Cable jointers working on high voltage, real high-skilled areas of industry. The same with renewables at a grid scale level, with renewables and wind and solar, where we've got these high-skilled roles manufacturing this stuff in the UK, installing it both on land and at sea. We've got massive growth in IT and data, and all of the data centres in the UK that have been built to cover that off. We need the skills there to do all of that. And as always, there's the instrumentation and control side of things. That is an area of industry that's been underserved for decades. There is huge opportunity for people there. And certainly in and around infrastructure in the UK. So the railways, this is things where investment has to be made. The trains have to keep running. And generally speaking, the quality of work has to be there as well. So the paid roles and the money and funding is there to do very, very well in those sectors. Highways the same. There's opportunity everywhere you look, and there's contractors and business owners I can think of in all those places who are absolutely thriving. Same with employed people. You don't hear from them very much on social media because they're just getting on with it. So if you're in training right now, there has never been a better time to qualify as an electrician. The routes to qualification have been clearly mapped out and defined, be that through an apprenticeship or a legitimate full-time study route. This is a thing I want to get over, that I'm not saying it's just apprenticeships. There are opportunities in all kinds of places. The full-time options are so important. Adult retrainees, people who couldn't find the work role. These problems exist, and you should still be able to access your training. But the important thing is the gatekeeping and routes through, which still involve the MBQ and AM to ensure everybody is working to the same goalpost, if you like. And yeah, the opportunities are there. You've got all of the resources online. There's so much stuff on YouTube from different content creators in all sectors and those in multi-sectors, sharing their stuff, sharing their tips on businesses, her experience. The knowledge is there. You don't have to go down the library and start hassling people door to door on the phone, on site, trying to glean information. It's there on tap. You can make of yourself whatever you want with enough effort, determination, and problems of the past that were made by people sort of my age and above being worked away from. And you guys, and girls, the young people of today are the ones who are going to solve that. You are not the problem. You are the solution. Never, ever forget it. So stay on that positive path. Keep working to your goals. Don't let the trade trolls and those who only come with problems, negativity, divert your eyes from what is really out there. And the efforts of those guiding industry today, volunteers largely, are making on your behalf to allow you an opportunity in that goal. And if you are a small employer and you're not doing it yet, please do consider taking on apprentices. There's loads of examples out there where that's gone really, really well for people. And the same result could be there for you too. Form part of the solution. It's the best advice I've got for anyone. And through doing that, the upsides are there always round. And for those who, have consistently come forward with these, negative attitudes, and they really don't like me terming these things negative and positive, but I'll say what I see. It's not too late to change your ways, to start employing apprentices, to get into education, go and give your time. I often see how they say the wages aren't enough in education. You don't have to just be paid, you can go and volunteer. An apprentice one-to-one's probably dumped over £100,000 into industry in the time I've been doing it. Anything's possible when you put your mind to it. So, you don't have to be the problem or just highlighting the problem. You can be the solution. And the solution is not shouting about things on the internet. It's an echo chamber nonsense. See you on the next one.